Hello, today is the anniversary of the day in 1992 when the Church apologised for its treatment of Galileo. Galileo, who you remember, was one of the first to state that the Earth moved around the Sun, but the Church at the time saw this as heretical because it conflicted with the biblical account of creation, and so he was treated accordingly. The Church on this day in 1999 apologised for the way in which over previous centuries it had been divided over the question of faith, a division which started with Martin Luther, who again on this day but in 1517 posted his 95 Theses, which claimed a different view of the role of faith in the Christian life to what was standard then doctrine from the Roman Catholic Church, and then the Church split into Catholics and Protestants with wars and all sorts of conflict following on. The Church apologising for two things, reminding us that it's not a infallible institution, that the Church is constantly struggling to keep up with new ideas, although it hopefully doesn't always take as long as the 359 years it took them to apologise to Galileo. Church struggling to catch up with new ideas, to decide how to relate to modern developments, and often getting it wrong. Often being rather too conservative, but sometimes, occasionally, being too radical. The Church is a fallible institution, and what I think we need to be reminded of today, perhaps, is that in the end, the important thing is for us to work out what we believe, and not to be over-influenced, perhaps, by the statements and doctrines issued from church hierarchies. This, I think, helps not only in giving us a sense of solidity in our faith, not relying on somebody else's, but on working it out for ourselves, but also makes us more flexible and open to new ideas and to new developments, and to applying our faith in the way that we want to, with our way of thinking, applying our faith to new ideas, the way in which society is changing, and some of the moral and ethical issues that come up in that situation. There was a Methodist called Herbert Butterfield, who in the middle of the last century was the Regius Professor of Modern History at Cambridge, and he wrote a book called Christianity and History. And in it he makes this same point. He says that in the end you can't use the Christian Church to you can't rely on it to give you a valid interpretation of what's going on. He says if you want a rock that's really firm, but also that opens up the possibility of flexibility and openness to the future, he says you can only find that in Jesus. And he ends his book, Christianity and History, with this phrase: "Hold fast to Christ, and for the rest be totally uncommitted."